Have you ever found yourself in a conversation or, just observing someone and just thinking, why on earth are they acting that way?
Uh-huh.
Or perhaps you've been on the other side feeling completely misunderstood, like your words are just kind of bouncing off a wall.
Oh, absolutely. We've all been there, right?
Yeah, exactly. Those moments when interactions just don't flow or someone's behavior seems utterly baffling. It's almost like, like you're surrounded by idiots.
And while that's definitely a provocative title, our deep dive today isn't really about labeling anyone.
Right.
Instead, our mission is to unpack a truly fascinating and I think incredibly practical framework that helps us move beyond that initial frustration.
Okay.
We're going to dive deep into Thomas Erikson's best-selling book, Surrounded by Idiots, which introduces a remarkably insightful system to classify human communication and behavior. It's about understanding not just what people do, but, the underlying motivations and how they fundamentally perceive the world.
That's it, exactly. Our deep dive today is all about giving you, our listener, a real shortcut to being truly well-informed about human interaction.
A shortcut. I like that.
Yeah. We'll explore the unexpected origins of this method, uncover the 4 distinct behavior types Erikson describes using the DIC system.
You're yellow, green, blue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then arm you with practical advice for navigating different personalities in both your professional and personal life.
Okay.
Consider this your essential guide to understanding why people do what they do, and crucially, how you can communicate more effectively without ever feeling, overwhelmed by information. So let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
So where did this whole idea, this surrounded by idiots realization, really begin for Erikson? It's a story I think many of us can probably relate to.
Yeah.
He traces it back to his high school days. He noticed some friends were just incredibly easy to talk to. Conversations flowed, no conflicts, just a smooth connection.
The easy ones.
Right. But with others, everything seemed to go wrong. What he said seemed to fall on deaf ears, and he genuinely couldn't understand why. Being young, he simply assumed they were the problem. I was the same all the time, he thought.
Right, of course. It couldn't be me.
Exactly. And like many of us, his simple solution was just to start avoiding these weird, difficult people.
It's such a common, almost naive early life conclusion, isn't it? If someone doesn't think or act like us, we naturally assume they must be flawed or,
an idiot.
Yeah, an idiot. But the true turning point for Erikson came later, in his mid-20s, when he met a self-employed man in his 60s named Stur.
Sure. Okay.
Stur genuinely believed he was surrounded by idiots in his own company. He'd openly criticize employees in Department A as complete idiots, Department B as fools who understood nothing, and Department C as the worst of all.
Wow. To their faces.
To their faces. He had absolutely no issue calling anyone an idiot directly.
Oof. And what was his employees' response to this kind of, behavior?
It was extreme and, frankly, quite sad. No one dared to have one-on-one meetings with him.
I bet.
He'd famously shoot the messenger if bad news was delivered.
Oh, no.
In one office, they even mounted a warning light above the reception desk. Red when Stur was there, green when he was away.
Get out. A warning light.
A warning light, seriously. When you hear about that kind of environment, it makes you wonder what kind of psychological damage that does to a company's culture long term.
It completely erodes trust, doesn't it? Just kills it.
Totally. As Erikson observed, this vivid scenario wasn't just an anecdote. It was the catalyst for his key realization. Stur's definition of idiocy was simply anyone who didn't think or act like him. He'd use terms like arrogant windbags or tedious blockheads, expressions Erikson himself admitted to using before.
Ouch, yeah.
Recognizable. Right. This experience, witnessing such an extreme yet relatable situation, really spurred Erikson's journey to move beyond mere judgment and seek a true comprehension of these difficult people and their communication styles. It fundamentally changed his perspective on human interaction, prompting him to ask, who is actually the idiot here?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. And that question leads us directly to the foundations of the DISC method itself, which has surprisingly humble origins.
Okay, DISC. Where did that come from?
It traces back to Bill and David Bonstetter, father and son. And it all started with a simple, almost curious question.
Yeah.
Could an agricultural salesperson sell more seed simply by looking at a farm?
Looking at a farm. How would that... Okay, tell me more.
Right. It sounds kind of random, but this question, rooted in practical, real-world observation, incredibly enough, laid the groundwork for a revolutionary approach to understanding human behavior.
That's fascinating, connecting something as seemingly complex as human behavior to, well, agricultural sales.
Yeah, and this simple question led to a powerful collaboration. Bill Bonstetter brought his, what Erikson calls a wizard-like ability to understand people.
Okay, the intuition part.
Exactly, almost intuitive. While his son David, with his computer science skills, provided the analytical rigor.
Oh, the structure.
Right. This synergy led to the creation of TTI Success Insights in 1984. And get this, they were producing human behavior reports on 3.5-inch floppy disks.
Floppy disks? Wow. Okay, so this has been around a while.
A long while. It really is a testament to how long this system has been evolving and impacting lives. It wasn't some abstract academic theory. It was built on practical application from the start.
Makes sense.
Exactly. And David Bonstetter, in the foreword to Surrounded by Idiots, really clarifies the core purpose of this method. He acknowledges that human behavior is, for the most part, complex and nebulous, making it easy and dangerous to categorize someone who behaves differently from you as ignorant, wrong, or even thick-headed.
Yeah, that's the trap.
That's the trap. But the method's true purpose isn't to label, it's to reveal human potential, helping people truly value others for their strengths and weaknesses.
Valuing both sides.
Yes. The ultimate realization, as he puts it, is that the idiots who surround you are in fact not idiots at all. They are simply individuals who are worthy of respect, understanding, and being valued.
It's a powerful reframe, isn't it? From judgment to insight.
A huge reframe.
That's a profound shift. Moving from frustration and labeling to true empowerment through understanding. And it highlights some core principles for better communication, starting with the fundamental idea that, well, communication happens on the listener's terms.
That's huge.
Erikson emphasizes that everything you say is filtered through the listener's frames of reference, biases, and preconceived ideas.
Their internal world.
Right. It means that even if you think you're being perfectly clear, what's actually understood can be totally different from your intention. It's a crucial insight for anyone who wants to be heard effectively.
Absolutely. And since, as Erikson puts it, you can't change how the listener functions, the real power lies in the art of adaptation.
Ah, okay. So it's on us to change.
Well, yes. This is where your flexibility comes in. Adjusting your communication style to meet others' needs is what truly characterizes a good communicator.
Right.
Erikson reminds us that no matter what method you choose to communicate with, as an individual, you will always be in the minority with people who are different from you.
That's a really interesting point. You're always outnumbered by people who aren't like you.
Exactly. This means relying solely on your own preferred communication style simply won't work in most interactions. Understanding this allows you to make more, let's say, educated guesses about how people will react and dramatically increases your ability to get through to them.
So it's less about manipulation and more about effectiveness and, like, genuine connection.
Precisely. Erikson uses a great analogy for this. He describes behavior patterns as being like a toolbox.
A toolbox, okay.
He says, all types are needed. A 30-pound sledgehammer is great for tearing down walls, but it's hardly the thing if you want to hang a picture.
Right. Makes perfect sense.
And this idea of behavior as a toolbox is where the real power of this framework lies. It elegantly shifts our perspective from labeling someone as difficult to understanding that every personality type, every tool, has a valid and necessary function. The challenge isn't the tool itself, but in knowing when and how to wield it effectively, or sometimes knowing when to put it back in the box. It's about conscious application, not rigid categorization.
I like that. It's about using the right tool for the job, basically.
Spot on. And if we dig a bit deeper into understanding what shapes us, Erikson explains that our behavior is a complex mix of heredity and environment.
Nature and nurture.
Exactly. He points out that temperament and character traits are laid even before birth, with genetic influences affecting our behavioral development.
So some of it's just baked in from the start.
It's like a foundational blueprint that's established very early on, giving us our initial leanings, you could say.
And once we're born, childhood influences kick in.
Right.
Primarily through imitation.
Yes. Children learn by mimicking what they see around them, with the parent of the same sex often becoming a key model.
Ah, okay.
It's how those initial spontaneous behaviors begin to be shaped, sometimes into copies of others, forming our earliest habits and ways of interacting with the world.
Then there's the distinction between core values and attitudes. How does that work?
So core values are deeply embedded, almost impossible to change. Things like study and do well or fighting is wrong, often learned in childhood and forming our fundamental moral compass.
Got it. The really deep stuff.
Right. Attitudes, however, are more malleable. Erikson gives the example of a relative who distrusted salespeople due to bad experiences.
Okay.
But, he notes, attitudes can change with positive experiences, highlighting our capacity for growth and evolving perspectives as we encounter new information and situations.
That's hopeful. So we're not totally fixed.
Not at all. Which leads us to the important difference between our core behavior and moderated behavior.
Okay. Core versus moderated. What's the difference?
Core behavior is how you act in complete freedom, without any external influences. Something Erikson humorously suggests only truly happens when we're sleeping.
Okay.
But what others perceive is your moderated behavior, which he calls the mask you wear to fit a situation.
Ah, the mask. We all have those, don't we?
Absolutely. Several of them. One for work, one for home, maybe another for the in-laws. It's about how we interpret situations and then consciously or subconsciously choose to act, often to meet expectations or achieve a desired outcome.
Right. Adjusting to the context.
And this brings us to the fundamental formula of behavior, a core piece of Erikson's model. Behavior equals FPASF.
Okay. Looks like math, but break it down for us.
It does. But what it really helps us understand is the interplay of who we are, our personality, P, and how that interacts with our surrounding factors. SS, okay.
Yeah.
Behavior, then, is what we can observe. Personality is what we try to figure out from those observations. And surrounding factors are the things that we or others can actually influence. This formula succinctly highlights a crucial point. We continually affect one another. Understanding these factors helps us to try and figure out what's truly under the surface of someone's actions, moving beyond superficial judgment.
Okay, now let's get to the heart of the system itself. The four main behavior types, each associated with a color: red, yellow, green, and blue.
The famous four colors?
Exactly. Erikson explains that most people, around 80%, are actually a combination of two colors.
Right, most aren't purely one thing.
Yeah, and a smaller percentage, maybe 5%, are dominated by just one color, and the rest might have three dominant colors.
Interesting breakdown.
But to truly grasp the nuances, he says we need to look at them individually first as the fundamental components, like understanding individual ingredients before you bake a complex cake.
Makes sense. Start simple.
Let's start with red behavior, the alpha. These are the dynamic and driven individuals that you simply cannot ignore.
The ones who walk into a room and you know it.
Totally. They have incredibly ambitious goals, an unsurpassed belief in their own ability, and a sheer refusal to give up. They push themselves harder, genuinely believing they can achieve anything with enough effort.
That intense drive.
Yeah, they're classic task-oriented extroverts who enjoy challenges, make quick decisions, and are completely comfortable taking the lead. You'll often find them as natural leaders, truly excelling in competitive situations.
Their drive is truly remarkable, sometimes, bordering on obsessive. Erikson provides great examples.
Like what?
His neighbor Pele, who started gardening just to outdo Erikson himself.
Huh. Just for the competition.
Exactly. Or the CEO who literally flattened anyone who stood in his way in a friendly soccer tournament.
Whoa. Friendly tournament.
Apparently not friendly enough for him. There's even the anecdote of a red CEO racing to see how quickly he could read a book 100 pages an hour.
100 pages an hour. Wow.
For Reds, competition is a constant, even in seemingly insignificant areas. The insight here is that for them, it's not about dominating others for its own sake, but simply about winning and achieving.
And for Reds, it really feels like time is money, like intensely.
Oh, absolutely. For them, quick is synonymous with good. They absolutely detest sluggishness and will interrupt long discussions to get to the point.
Get to the point.
Yeah. Bjorn, a consulting company founder Erikson worked with, was legendary for his 8-second phone calls.
8 seconds.
8 seconds. If you weren't looking for him, the conversation was over click.
Wow. Efficient, I guess.
Extremely. Reds move on long before everyone else, ensuring momentum because, in their view, it's always better to do something rather than nothing. Inactivity is their nemesis.
Their ambition seems intrinsic, right? And power. It's not about status.
No. For Reds, power isn't about prestige. It's a direct means to make decisions quickly and avoid waiting on others. They have a strong ego and, frankly, don't care what others think.
Not looking for approval.
Not at all. They aren't seeking external validation. They're driven by their own internal compass, focused on getting things done their way.
Now, despite these powerful and often effective traits, reds have very clear perceived weaknesses, don't they? This is where interactions with other colors can really become challenging.
Definitely. They're often seen as belligerent, arrogant, and egotistical, or described as unyielding, impatient, aggressive, and controlling even.
Even dictatorial and tyrannical. Ouch.
Yeah, strong words. Erikson notes that these unflattering descriptions are often entirely new insights for reds themselves.
Really, they don't see it.
Often not, precisely because they are so task-oriented rather than relationship-oriented. The real insight here is that for reds, it's not about malice, but a fundamental difference in how they prioritize results over relationships, which can often be a jarring new realization for them when others point it out.
That makes sense. It's a blind spot.
A big one. And one of the clearest manifestations of this is their brutal candor.
Ah, yes. The unfiltered truth.
Exactly. They express opinions with startling frankness without the typical social filters. Erikson recounts a colleague's unfiltered feedback on a project.
It doesn't look that good. I'm amazed that you didn't do better than this. I think you have to redo the whole thing.
Wow. Just blunt.
Completely blunt. They intended to be honest, as asked, but the directness could be absolutely crushing to someone with a different communication style.
I can imagine. And then there's their strong control needs. What's that about?
They inherently want power over a situation, genuinely believing they know more than anyone else in a given scenario.
Yeah.
They'll keep tabs on everyone, often to their colleagues' exasperation.
Micromanaging, almost.
It can definitely look like that. Erikson gives the example of a red-blue middle manager who delegated tasks, but then if they weren't done immediately to her satisfaction, would actually do them herself and then criticize the employee's sluggishness.
Oof. Undermining the delegation.
Classic.
It's a classic paradox of delegation for a red. And you'll notice in their communication a strong tendency towards I statements. I think we should. I want that assignment, I've decided.
Right. Very self-focused language.
Yes. This direct, self-focused communication can be unsettling, especially for more relationship-oriented greens who might perceive it as egotistical or dismissive of others' contributions. It signals ownership and direction, which they see as efficiency, but others might see as arrogance.
Got it.
So, to give you a voice from real life and truly ground this, let's hear from Helena, a red individual who shares her perspective.
Okay, Helena the Red, what does she say?
She openly confirmed that she's not an evil despot. I'm just red.
Huh. Good disclaimer.
Right. She now understands why blues take such a long time to make decisions, having gained perspective from the book. When asked why others don't speak their minds or hold back, she found it immature, dishonest, actually, believing people should just admit your mistakes.
Wow, no gray areas there.
None. It really underscores that directness we just discussed.
And Helena's self-reflection on her own rapid-fire decision-making is quite telling, isn't it?
It really is. She admits to making quick, poorly thought-out decisions, like accepting a job without even asking about salary details, which, predictably, led to working 60 hours a week without overtime.
Oh, wow. Jump first, ask questions later.
Exactly. Or hiring a complete scammer without references, costing the company lots of money wasted. It highlights that while quick decisions are a red strength, thoroughness might be sacrificed.
Yeah, the downside of speed.
Her personal life reflects these patterns too, particularly in her marriage to a green. She says, I tell him what needs to be done, and he does it.
Oh, interesting dynamic.
Yeah, but then she gets annoyed he hasn't finished and admits she creates disorder but blames him. For conflict resolution, she argues directly, and he gets sulky for days or weeks.
Oh, dear. The silent treatment.
Right, forcing her to start guessing what's wrong, often about an insignificant stray comment she forgot instantly.
That sounds frustrating for both of them.
Very. Her core philosophy truly embodies the red drive. It's not how much you know or how clever you are, but what you actually do. And I have always been good at that. Doing things, it's all about action.
Okay, so if you were to meet her, what would be her advice? How should people interact with her?
She wants you to know, don't be intimidated. Don't back off just because I can raise my voice a bit. I'm not angry just because I push people.
Good to know. Don't take it personally.
Right. She expects others to get the show on the road and put energy into the task, not waste time on small talk. It's all about directness, action, and getting to the objective.
Okay, from the results-driven reds, let's pivot to a personality type that truly brings the sunshine, often literally, the yellows, or as Erikson dubs them, the enthusiast.
Ah, the yellows, yes.
These are the people who consistently see sunshine where others see dark clouds and laugh easily. They are the jovial, positive entertainers in any group, often the life of the party.
Always optimistic.
Always. Yellows are focused on creating relationships, inherently outgoing and extremely persuasive. For them, everything new is enjoyable, which is such a refreshing contrast to some other types.
Their optimism is almost unreal sometimes. Doesn't it feel that way? To the point of disbelief for other types?
Totally. Erikson shares his sister Marita's reaction to, "It looks like it's going to rain." She replies, "I can't imagine that," and insists, "After that, the sun will come out."
Huh. Always a silver lining.
Right. Another friend, Mike, was described as the most jinxed man Erikson knew, having suffered countless misfortunes. Yet after a car accident where he couldn't get out the driver's side, he said, "It was fine. I just got out the other door."
Unbelievable. That invincible optimism truly is characteristic. They simply pivot to the positive.
Their social connectivity is truly remarkable, too. Yellows can talk to anyone, perceiving most people as pleasant, even seeing strangers as just friends you haven't met yet.
The ultimate networkers.
Totally. They're the ones with the most holiday cards, most contacts in their phone, and most friends on Facebook. They inherently want to be where the action is, always up to date and at every party. For them, connection is everything.
This boundless energy and positivity means they love it to bits. It's an unlimited optimism and enthusiasm focused intensely on finding opportunities and solutions.
Right.
Marianne, a sales director, Erikson observed, could inspire her team to jump out the window with sheer inspiration.
Wow. That's persuasive.
Incredibly. She even turned an irate customer into boisterous laughter just by refusing to listen to negativity and smiling steadfastly. It's a genuine belief that everything can and will be positive.
And their creativity and new ideas often stem from thinking in images, right?
Yes. They literally see things before they exist, like Robin, Erikson's friend, envisioning entire garden designs out of thin air. They have the courage to try new things, and their mouth often works parallel to their mind as they discover these ideas, almost thinking aloud in a stream of consciousness.
Thinking out loud. Yeah, I know people like that.
Yeah. We all do. However, their infectious enthusiasm often comes with a glaring lack of self-awareness, leading to several perceived weaknesses that can be challenging for others.
Okay, the downsides of yellow, what are they?
First, and perhaps most frustratingly for others, they are notorious for talking too much and poor listening.
Uh-oh, the talkers.
Big time. They can completely dominate a conversation. Erikson once timed a sales manager named Peter, who, despite having only 5.3% of the agenda, spoke 69% of the time.
69%.
Yeah. And Gustav, another yellow, would literally answer questions directed at others, charging in whenever there was a gap. This isn't usually malicious. They just love to talk and assume everyone else does too.
But it's hard to get a word in edgewise.
Exactly. And this often goes hand in hand with their disorganization and forgetfulness. They simply have no natural way to keep track of things and find structured, detailed work boring.
Boring. Details are boring.
For them, yes. So they inevitably forget, leading to missed appointments, forgotten deadlines, and half-finished projects. They paint with broad strokes, not interested in the minutiae like reading instruction manuals.
Which, for a blue, would be absolute sacrilege.
Oh, totally. Their time optimism is also legendary. They are hopeless at keeping time, always late.
Always fashionably late.
Right. Then they'll famously haggle down their late arrival from 45 minutes to a little over 15, genuinely believing their own revised timeline.
Rewriting history.
Pretty much. This also manifests as a lack of follow-through. Following up on tasks is extremely boring for them. They'd rather persuade himself that it's important to have confidence in people and just trust that the project gets done.
Trust is good, but yeah, things might not get done.
Exactly. This often means projects languish, like the sales rep who kept delaying her personal development plan because it simply wasn't exciting enough for her.
And finally, their self-centeredness can be glaring, right? It's often me.
Yes, their communication primarily revolves around themselves. If others aren't sufficiently interesting, a yellow will interrupt and guide the topic towards something far more interesting, not infrequently himself.
Bringing it back to them.
Always. This is compounded by being genuinely bad listeners. They're miserable listeners, often uninterested in what others say because they believe they could say it so much better themselves. If a conversation is boring, they close their ears. Quite literally.
Ouch. Not great for connection, ironically.
It's a real paradox.
Yeah.
So let's hear from Hawken, a yellow. He genuinely loves public speaking, saying he's always asked to be the spokesman.
Makes sense for yellow.
Totally.
Yeah.
His most practical takeaway from the book, blues are boring, those red tape jackasses.
Ah, okay, direct feedback there.
Very direct. He criticizes them for planning and making lists, but not actually doing anything. It's a classic yellow frustration with blues meticulousness. He believes in gut feeling, but also, he claims, facts.
Okay, when asked about his weaknesses, how does Hawken respond? Let me guess.
He completely deflects, chooses instead to emphasize the good things in life, and criticizing greens for worrying about everything and blues for being risk-phobic.
Avoidance.
Textbook. When pressed further on his own weaknesses, he simply states, nothing that comes to mind.
Wow. That lack of self-awareness again.
Prime example. His advice for meeting him really encapsulates the yellow spirit. Don't take life so seriously, with a smile. You can get very far with a smile. He believes that the rest will always work out.
The eternal optimist. Even about their own flaws, apparently.
It's a testament to the unshakable optimism that defines yellow behavior, even when others might see chaos.
Next up, let's explore green behavior, the helper. These individuals are characterized by being calm, composed, and as laid back as can be.
The chill ones.
Totally. They truly prioritize relationships and strive for harmony, trying not to offend people if they can avoid it. They are thoughtful, show infinite regard for those around him, and are known for being incredibly selfless and genuine friends. They're often the unsung heroes of any group.
Their selflessness is a defining trait, isn't it? Often leading them to put others' needs before their own.
Absolutely. Erikson gives examples like Maja, the administrator, who never forgot birthdays or anniversaries and went out of her way to help stressed-out consultants, often unnoticed.
The quiet support.
Yeah. Or Lhasa, a friend who helps people move, lends tools, and listens patiently to complaints, even forgetting his own work and his eagerness to support others. They genuinely derive satisfaction from being helpful.
That's really admirable. But despite these pleasant and highly valued qualities, greens have significant perceived weaknesses, primarily stemming from their deep aversion to conflict.
Right. The conflict avoidance. How does that show up?
Often as silent resistance and dishonesty. They might say yes but means no, and they'll often tell the truth behind the back of the person concerned.
Ooh, that's tricky. Talking behind someone's back.
It can make them appear dishonest to others, even though their intention is solely to avoid conflict and maintain harmony. It's a tough tightrope walk for them.
I can see that. Trying to keep the peace, but maybe not being upfront.
Exactly. Erikson shares a striking example with Christopher, a green colleague who called him on a Sunday morning. Christopher talked for 15 minutes about Erikson's house renovations and boiler problems, offering advice.
Okay, manly chap.
Before finally revealing, almost as an afterthought, that he was locked out of the office in freezing weather and desperately needed a ride.
15 minutes before getting to the point.
15 minutes. As Erikson observes, everyone else is more important. A green never asks for anything. It's that complete self-effacement taken to an extreme.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah.
Their conflict aversion can also lead to pig-headedness and a surprising lack of initiative, right?
Yes. They can be pig-headed about their routines and uninspired to try new things, waiting for the right feeling to act.
Waiting for the feeling while a red's already done.
Exactly. They might recognize a good idea, but just sits and waits. Gregor, a CEO Erikson coached, had a team of green middle managers whose reactions to new ideas were always predictably cautious. No, yes, or often maybe.
The maybe zone. Sounds safe but slow.
Very safe, very slow. It's a deep-seated resistance to disruption. This also contributes to their ambiguity. They express themselves vaguely to avoid taking responsibility or stating a firm position.
Hedging their bets.
Constantly. Instead of saying, that's impossible, they'll say, it appears that there are a few challenges in delivering that. As one woman Erikson met put it, she believed what everyone else believed, highlighting their tendency to blend in and avoid clear, potentially controversial stances.
Blending in. A major challenge for greens, both for themselves and for those interacting with them, is their profound resistance to change, isn't it?
Huge. For them, everything new is evil, and it should be strongly discouraged. They dislike sudden changes to their routines or environment.
Don't move my cheese.
Exactly. Erikson shares the classic cliche of people sitting at the same breakfast table spot, or soon, who had a meticulous lunchtime routine, completely flustered if it was disrupted.
Routine is comfort.
It is. Even Erikson's own mother, a green, was flustered by a change in plans that didn't even affect her directly, needing extra time just to think about it.
Wow. And their deep conflict aversion creates another significant dilemma that often leads to bigger problems down the line, right?
It really does. They despise a squabble, leading them to smother conflict and pretend that it doesn't exist. Erikson uses the metaphor of a rotting pile of trash on the dinner table that everyone ignores until someone finally addresses it.
Oof. Sweeping it under the rug.
Exactly. This unspoken frustration, especially in a team setting, ultimately leads to bigger conflicts later because those unspoken grievances simply fester.
And that connects to holding grudges.
Precisely. This tendency to internalize frustration leads to them holding grudges. They don't release anger or address issues directly, but instead control emotions, storing frustration internally.
Building up pressure.
Yes. And when it finally comes out, it's a large-scale historical accounting, as Erikson describes. You said that I didn't finish the project. A year ago, you promised me a new office. It's a sudden, overwhelming torrent of stored-up grievances that can completely blindside others.
Whoa. The floodgates open.
Big time. Let's hear from Elizabeth, a green with some blue and yellow tendencies, who brings this to life.
Okay, Elizabeth, what's her take?
She feels the Dia-C tool made her behavior even clearer. Now I know that Reds think I'm stubborn and that I'm a bit cautious by nature. She deeply values cooperation and wants everyone to be in agreement, which, as we've discussed, is a hallmark of green behavior.
Wanting everyone to get along.
Exactly. She humorously describes her husband, who is yellow and blue, finding it funny that he's optimistic about time and hops into the shower 3 minutes before guests start arriving.
Classic yellow time management.
Right. And when discussing blues, like her sister Ivor, Elizabeth notes they are uninterested in the rest of the world and can be quite critical, recalling how Ivor immediately pointed out that her husband's newly built deck railing was 2 degrees off from being level.
2 degrees, only a blue, maybe.
Or a blue-green, pointing it out quietly later. It's amazing how these patterns emerge in simple family interactions.
It really is. What about Reds? How does she see them?
When asked about Reds, she acknowledges they are very efficient, but tellingly deflects when asked about their reprimanding of a late colleague. I wasn't there. It shouldn't have been handled like that.
Oh, avoiding the direct critique again.
Clearly prefers indirect criticism, aligning perfectly with the green aversion to confrontation. Her advice for meeting her is a clear request for a softer, more relationship-focused approach up front.
Yeah. What does she want?
It would be great if people understood that some of us want to take it easy, and that I don't enjoy things changing all the time. I'd like to get a chance to get to know people a little bit before we just dive into work.
Connection before task. Very green.
Very green. It's a plea for connection and comfort before task.
Okay, finally, we turn our attention to blue behavior, the perfectionist.
The analysts, the detail people.
Exactly. This individual doesn't make a fuss about himself, but he does keep tabs on what is happening around him. They are the ultimate analysts. They classify, evaluate, assess. They're inherently reserved, analytical, and meticulously detail-oriented. If you're a details person, you'll likely feel right at home with a blue.
You can often recognize a blue by their profound need for order and precision, which extends into their personal spaces. Their homes are often organized in a particular way, with labels on hooks and even 6-week dinner menus planned out.
6-week menus?
Yeah. Tools are always in their designated spots, cleaned and ready. For them, everything has its place in a clear system, and deviating from that system can be a source of real discomfort.
Everything in its place. And while others might call them pessimistic, blues see themselves as
realists. Always realists. Erikson describes them as the melancholic, who inevitably sees errors and he sees risks where others might see opportunity.
Finding the potential problems.
Exactly. They are driven by an intense need for accuracy and detail. They're the ones who will correct you on the number of Patriots' Super Bowl appearances, Will Smith's hometown, or even obscure coin toss statistics.
The fact checkers.
Always. They would rather burn the midnight oil checking all the facts than miss a single detail. For them, accuracy is paramount.
Erikson shares a legendary story about trying to sell a leadership program to a blue CEO, right?
Oh yeah, the 85-page quote story. This CEO needed 85 pages of detailed material just for a quote.
85 pages.
And even after reviewing that extensive table of contents, he'd continue to ask for months, is there any more material?
More material, wow.
For him, the process leading up to the decision was significantly more interesting than the decision itself. The journey of analysis was the reward.
That's incredible. And they excel at root cause analysis, don't they? Oh, definitely. If there's an oil stain on the floor, a red might just mop it up and move on. A blue, however, will immediately ask, why is there an oil spill, and then continue to drill down. Why is the gasket leaking? Why do we have poor quality gaskets who ask us to compromise on quality?
Getting to the absolute bottom of it.
Right. Their goal is to understand the fundamental problem, leading to systemic solutions like reviewing purchasing strategies instead of just surface fixes. It's an incredibly valuable skill for problem solving.
Absolutely. This commitment to truth and accuracy means they find it difficult to lie and will always point out the defects they uncover.
Even if it's awkward. Like Erikson's father, the engineer, and a classic blue who would point out all the house flaws to prospective buyers because that's how it should be done.
Brutal honesty, but from a place of accuracy.
Exactly. For blues, honesty and integrity are paramount, even if it's uncomfortable for others.
And when it comes to decision-making, it's always logic over feelings.
Always. They value rational arguments and want to out with all the feelings, in with logic.
Keep emotion out of it.
Completely. Erikson humorously describes a blue assembling IKEA furniture. They'll read instructions twice, tally all the screws, and meticulously wipe down each part before assembly.
Following the instructions to the letter.
To the letter. His father, the engineer, measured a gravel slope to the exact centimeter because it says so in the book. For blues, precision and adherence to established, proven methods are everything.
Okay, so what are their perceived weaknesses? They must have some stemming from this meticulousness.
They do. One of the biggest challenges with blues is their slow decision-making. They find it difficult to begin anything new because they want to prepare very thoroughly.
Analysis paralysis.
Totally. They can famously plan into the next century without ever putting a shovel to the ground. Erikson recalls a project manager who test drove 16 cars for 8 months just to buy the most common, boring car that had already been extensively reviewed by consumer agencies.
8 months for a car. Wow.
The fear of making the wrong decision can paralyze them. They are often perceived as overly critical and almost suspicious.
Finding fault.
While noticing imperfections, they deliver observations insensitively, which can lower morale and create distance. Erikson's friend Hans immediately pointed out a cupboard door is crooked in his newly remodeled kitchen, even though he knew Erikson had worked hard on it.
Ouch. Not reading the room.
Not really. And the woman who meticulously organized her children's shoes and cleaned crumbs couldn't understand why her colleagues found it obsessive. It's not about being mean, it's about noticing imperfections.
Furthermore, blues can appear aloof and cold-hearted, can't they?
Yes, they simply don't need small talk and can give the impression they don't care about other people. They prefer their own company and with immediate family. They are inherently introverted, meaning active in the inner world, which often results in their quietness.
Focused inward.
Right. They also tend to lack trust in others' work. They question every single point and genuinely don't trust others' efforts. The only thing I can trust is myself and my own eyes.
Got to check it themselves.
Always. Erikson's friend, who double-checked Excel formulas with a calculator, is a perfect example, and this can be demoralizing for colleagues who feel constantly scrutinized.
I can see that.
So, to give you a real-life perspective, Stefan, a blue, perfectly exemplifies many of these traits.
Okay, Stefan the blue.
He noted how the book's structured approach resonated with him. He wrote about reds first, always just about the same number of pages on each color, very meta-analytical.
Analyzing the book's structure. Perfect.
Isn't it? He appreciates Red's tremendous drive and ability to make decisions quickly, but notes he ends up making a lot of mistakes, of course, and he sees his own role as helping them be more exacting.
The quality control for the Reds.
Exactly. It's that analytical, error-spotting nature shining through.
How does he work with greens?
Stefan feels he works fairly well with greens, as both are introverts, finding common ground in their quieter nature. But he admits to not doing anything about coworkers who pretend to work, stating, "It's not my responsibility, it's a management issue."
Sticking to his defined role.
Very much so. When pressed for hypothetical advice to management on this, he suggested more frequent follow-ups and around feedback, classic blue solutions rooted in process and accountability.
Makes sense. And yellows. How does he deal with them?
His interaction with yellows is, as you might expect, a particular challenge for him. He described them as exploding with 100 million things I wasn't interested in when asked a simple, factual question.
Overload.
Total overload. His advice for interacting with him is incredibly clear and direct. Respect my desire to be professional and not devote valuable time to things that aren't work-related. They should be well prepared. I need lots of background information.
Straight to business. facts only.
They small talk, just facts in preparation. And Stefan is remarkably open about his greatest weakness.
Oh, what does he say?
Sometimes I get way too caught up in details. He struggles to buy a new TV because he hasn't had time to do proper research and worries, what if it isn't good?
The paralysis by analysis again.
Textbook example. He even plans to order Marston's original book on DISC, showing his continuous pursuit of understanding details and the underlying frameworks.
Going deeper into the research. That's a true blue.
Isn't it just?
So we've mapped out the core characteristics of each color, but what about what isn't said, like the nonverbal stuff?
Body language. Yes, hugely important.
It turns out your body language, that immense unspoken language, can tell us just as much about a person's underlying color as their words do. Erikson notes that while modern English has about, 170,000 words?
Yeah, roughly.
Body language contains almost 700,000 signals.
700,000? That's a lot.
It's a staggering number. While the exact count might be debatable, the point is that there's an immense number of nonverbal cues at play that we often overlook.
Absolutely. And these nonverbal cues vary significantly by color, offering powerful clues if you know what to look for.
Okay, so break it down. What does red body language look like?
For reds, you'll observe them typically keeping their distance, maintaining personal space. They have powerful handshakes, often gripping harder to subtly show who's in charge.
The power handshake. Got it.
Yeah. They'll often lean forward aggressively, maintain very direct eye contact, and use clear, controlling gestures. Pointing, maybe?
Intense.
Very. They move at a brisk pace, almost expecting others to get out of his way, and often have a downright grim face in business settings, indicating their serious, results-oriented focus.
Okay. Grim but focused. What about yellow body language? Must be different.
Complete contrast. Full of jokes and smiles with intense, cheerful, and friendly eye contact that invites connection.
Warm and inviting.
Totally. Their voice has a strong commitment, full of laughter, fun, intensity, and frequently changes tempo, vigor, and intensity with a powerful melody. Lots of variation.
Expressive.
Extremely expressive. They show empathy very clearly through their expressions, making their warmth and exuberance impossible to miss. They're like human exclamation points.
I like that. Now, green body language.
Generally calm, relaxed, and soft. They maintain open body language, offer a gentle handshake, and use significantly less movement than other types.
More subdued.
Right. Their gestures are typically quiet and modest, reflecting their desire for harmony and avoidance of drawing any undue attention to themselves. They blend in softly.
And finally, blue body language. What clues do they give off?
Well, in slight contrast, blue body language is notably minimal. Erikson jokes there's not that much to interpret.
Still waters.
Pretty much. They sit almost perfectly still without moving even a muscle. Their very lack of distinctive body language is itself telling.
The absence of signals is the signal.
Exactly. If others come too close, encroaching on their space, their body language often becomes closed with crossed arms or legs, clearly indicating their need for personal space and boundaries.
Okay. Back off.
Yeah. They move less than others, and in comparison to a yellow, use too many gestures, meaning any gestures at all are notable. They can often be described as stone-faced and slow in both speech and deed.
Stone-faced. Okay. So beyond spoken and nonverbal cues, what about written communication? Can that reveal color too?
Oh, yeah. It's another powerful insight in our digital world. Erikson explains how writing styles can offer significant clues, even from a short email.
Even just an email.
Even an email. If you have a longer writing sample, like a report or maybe a column, it provides even more data to go on, offering another lens into their behavioral type.
Okay, let's break down how each color might write an email, and crucially, how you should respond. A red email.
Typically short, concise, and direct, often using caps for emphasis, like be punctual.
All cap, yeah. Got it. Action-oriented.
Exactly. It's all about the immediate action. So your response should be instantaneous. Reply instantly. Be short and concise. One way might be to simply reply.
Yeah, their brevity.
Okay. What about a yellow email?
Spontaneous, easygoing, and often filled with personal stories. What's up? Were you at the game last night? I saw that Lassa was there. He spilled his drink. You know, chatty.
Oh.
The social report. Right. They might even forget attachments and have to send a follow-up.
Oh, classic.
So your action, no rush, but don't fail to respond or he'll feel insecure. Be cordial. Thank him for the funny picture. Engaging with their personal touch.
Acknowledge the connection. Got it. Greet email.
A softer, more personal tone, often polished to avoid any potential controversy, and may include thoughtful reminders like, hope it still works for you, I'm going to bring in some homemade cinnamon buns.
Ah, thoughtful. And maybe avoiding direct requests.
Often, yes. Your reply should simply confirm reception, acknowledging their thoughtfulness with no need to rush as they appreciate a calm pace.
Gentle response.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And finally, a blue email.
Purely factual, with no personal touch whatsoever, and assumes thorough preparation on your part.
All business.
All business. It might attach multiple files and include a reminder that it's best to be well prepared.
Okay, setting expectations.
Exactly. Your action. Confirm receipt of the email and files, and state that you'll get back with questions after reading carefully. This shows you respect their detail-oriented approach and won't waste their time.
Show you're taking it seriously.
Yeah, right.
Moving beyond communication styles, let's talk about temperament and stress, what makes us mad.
Ah, stress reactions. Yeah, very revealing.
Erikson links this back to Hippocrates' 4 ancient temperaments, noting that different people react profoundly differently to stress, and stress often reinforces and even exaggerates their normal core behavior.
Right, it's like turning up the volume on their default settings. It doesn't usually change them into something else, it just makes them more of what they already are.
That makes sense.
It's fascinating how Erikson draws that line back to Hippocrates' ancient temperaments. Choleric for red, sanguine for yellow, phlegmatic for green, and melancholic for blue.
Wow, connecting it way back.
Yeah. This isn't just a historical footnote. It underscores how deeply ingrained and consistently observed these core behavioral patterns have been across human history, suggesting a powerful, almost archetypal basis for these differences.
So what stressed a choleric thousands of years ago likely still stresses a modern red?
Pretty much. So what stresses each color? For red stress, the primary stressors are having their authority taken away, achieving no tangible results, and lacking challenges.
Control, results, challenge. Got it. What happens when they're stressed?
When stressed, a red becomes even tougher and more aggressive, and almost instinctively looks for scapegoats.
Uh-oh. Blame game.
Can be. The fascinating paradox here is that to help them bounce back, you actually have to push them. If everything goes too smoothly, they simply get bored, and that itself becomes a stressor.
Wow. They need the friction.
In a way, yes. Now, for yellow stress, the triggers are suppressing their natural spontaneity and getting caught up in continuous squabbling over insignificant things, which they find totally draining.
Being stifled or bogged down in negativity. How do they react?
Their reaction. They loudly and intensely invite everyone into their stress spiral, becoming sulky and incredibly unstructured.
Oh, they bring everyone along for the ride.
Always. Erikson asserts that yellow stress will always be noticed because of their highly externalized nature. It's never a quiet struggle.
Makes sense. What about green stress? What sets them off?
Conflict and rapid, unexpected change are the main culprits. Big surprise there.
At it all. How do they show stress?
When under pressure, a green becomes even more passive and non-committal than usual, with obstinacy or stubbornness taking over. They turn all their frustration inwards, like Erikson's metaphor of a beer barrel with no tap. It just builds up inside.
Bottling it up. How do you help them?
To genuinely help them, you need to allow them to do nothing like gardening, sleeping, or reading until the stress subsides, giving them space to process. Don't push.
Give them space. Got it. And for blue stress, what are their triggers?
Key stressors include upset calculations, spontaneous decisions by management that lack data, risky or uncertain situations, and being around overly emotional people, which they find irrational.
Lack of data, risk, irrationality.
Okay.
Their reaction.
They become excessively pessimistic, falling into a pit of despair, becoming lethargic, unbearably pedantic, prone to constant criticism, and can become an unbearable know-it-all.
Oh, dear. Everything's wrong.
Pretty much. Erikson uses the metaphor of a beer barrel with a leaky tap, constantly releasing tiny grumblings.
Leaking negativity. How do you help a stressed blue?
To help them, you must give them privacy and time and space to think, to reestablish order and logic. Let them retreat and process.
Let them process. It's clear that understanding these stress triggers is absolutely crucial for navigating interactions and truly supporting those around us. Now let's explore group dynamics, crafting the ideal team.
Yeah, how do these colors work together or not work together?
Erikson makes a strong case that a group should consist of all colors to create the best possible dynamic. Think of it as a complete orchestra.
A balanced team.
Ideally, yeah.
Yeah.
You'd have a yellow for generating ideas, a red for decisive action, a green to diligently do the work, and a blue to meticulously evaluate and ensure excellence.
The dream team. But that ideal is often elusive in practice, isn't it?
For sure. But understanding how the colors naturally interact and where conflicts typically arise is key to building effective teams.
Right, so there are natural combinations based on similar tempo or focus. For example, blue and green often work remarkably well together.
The introvert.
Exactly, because both are introverts, calm, and naturally take time to think and process. They tend to feel secure with each other, though they may collectively struggle with making quick, spontaneous decisions.
Like it's stuck thinking?
Could happen. Similarly, red and yellow often click quite smoothly because both are extroverts, quick, powerful, and outgoing.
The extroverts.
Right. They both tend to shoot from the hip, eager to take action or inspire it. Red provides the acceleration and drive for results, while yellow brings the motivation and infectious energy, making for a highly dynamic duo.
Even if they're not always world-class listeners.
Exactly. Then there are complementary combinations, where different focuses but shared underlying drives create a powerful balance.
Okay, Lego.
Blue and red, both are fundamentally task-oriented. Red is the accelerator, interested in quick results, while blue is the brake, focused on process, quality, and preventing errors.
Accelerator and brake. Interesting image.
Yeah, they often speak the same language professionally and can greatly complement each other if they learn to respect each other's pace rather than constantly pushing both pedals at the same time.
A delicate balance. What about green and yellow?
Both people-focused. Green is easygoing, a patient listener, while yellow is fun-loving and loves to talk and connect. Green can provide a calming, stable presence for hysterical yellows and ensure relationships are maintained.
The steady hand for the enthusiastic one.
Right. The risk, of course, is that they might neglect the actual work in favor of a pleasant atmosphere, but they'll certainly have a very good time while doing it.
Fun, but maybe not productive.
Yeah.
Now, the problematic combinations. Where do the real clashes happen?
They arise when opposite behaviors clash directly, creating inherent friction. Red versus green is a prime example.
Opposites.
Big time. The aggressive, quick, order-giving red clashing with the passive, conflict-averse, slow green. While a green might be okay with receiving orders, a red will likely become intensely frustrated by the green's perceived moaning or lack of immediate action.
Impatience versus resistance.
Exactly. And yellow versus blue is another natural point of friction. The spontaneous, detail-averse yellow struggles immensely with the meticulous, fact-driven blue.
Chaos versus order.
Pretty much. Yellows find blues boring and bogged down in details, while blues find yellows chaotic and superficial. These opposing forces can lead to significant misunderstandings if not managed with conscious awareness.
Needs careful handling.
Definitely. Erikson also notes that while most people are combinations of two colors, a distinct red-green profile is highly unusual, often creating significant internal friction for that individual.
Interesting. Red-green is rare.
Seems so, and a great piece of advice if you can't place someone. His advice is to shut your mouth and start listening, essentially act green until you can observe more clearly.
Good tip. Observe first. Let's look at a couple of enlightening real-life examples from Erikson's experience that perfectly illustrate how these colors play out, starting with the company party from his banking days.
Ah, yes, the party story. Always revealing.
He observed how alcohol, even in moderation, could temporarily shift people's behavior, sometimes quite dramatically, almost reversing typical roles.
It's truly fascinating. He noticed that the typically jovial yellows became more and more silent, even moody and philosophical, transforming into what he called brooding pessimists.
Wow. The life of the party goes quiet.
Right. Conversely, the quiet, meticulous blues were found dancing on the table while telling dirty jokes, behaving almost exactly like one of the yellows, completely out of character.
Blues dancing on tables. No way.
Apparently so. And perhaps most strikingly, the stern red bank director became surprisingly ambiguous, explaining he wasn't a horrible person and even expressing appreciation for his green employees.
The tough red showing a softer side.
Under the influence, yes. In response, the usually passive greens, also under the influence, gave him a piece of their minds, suddenly irritated by his behavior, telling him he was the worst boss they'd ever had, and literally backing him into a corner to deliver their pent-up grievances.
Whoa. The greens finally erupted.
They did. By Monday, of course, everything was back to normal, highlighting the temporary nature of these shifts but revealing deeper underlying frustrations.
Fascinating snapshot. What about the team project experiments?
Another powerful example. He observed groups composed of single colors attempting a problem-solving task within an hour. The red group was characterized by high noise levels and arguing, with one member often just working alone.
Sounds about right. How did they do?
They famously finished in 30 minutes, half the allotted time, triumphantly presenting, but here's the kicker, they solved a completely different problem. They adapted the task to reality rather than actually following instructions.
Change the rules. Classic red.
Totally. When no applause came, they simply shrugged, unbothered.
Okay. The yellow group. How did they fare?
As you might expect, frantic, with lively discussions jostling at the whiteboard and an abundance of amusing anecdotes. They were the slowest to finish, with two members often on their phones and constantly needed coffee breaks.
Lots of energy, maybe not focused?
Exactly. Their presentation focused on the exciting discussions they had, but predictably offered no solution to the problem. It was all about the journey, not the destination.
All talk, no solution. Got it. The green group.
Almost absurdly quiet, with hesitant nods and thorough deliberation. But their message was hopelessly lost due to subtle observations and a reluctance to speak up.
Too quiet to be heard.
Pretty much. They didn't solve the task either, though they made more progress than the yellows, and everyone agreed to disagree on the next steps, maintaining harmony above all.
Harmony achieved, problem unsolved. And the blue group.
Also, almost absurdly quiet, engaged in silent reading and very thorough deliberation, focusing intensely on a plan of action at an extremely detailed level.
Deep in the weeds.
Way deep. They took far too long, ran out of time before reaching a solution. They were then branded complete idiots by the red group, most boring by the yellows, and the greens suffered silently through their hyper-detailed, incomplete presentation.
Ouch. Criticized by everyone else.
Yeah. These experiments vividly show exactly why the groups worked the way they did, and reinforce the absolute necessity of diverse perspectives and understanding in any collaborative effort. It's a powerful illustration of how each color's natural tendencies play out, both for better and for worse, and why a mix is almost always superior.
Okay. So after exploring these different behaviors in such detail, the big question becomes, how do we master communication? How do we use this knowledge effectively?
Right. It really boils down to the art of adaptation, a skill that can transform frustrating interactions into productive ones.
Why adapt? Why not just be yourself?
Well, because it's a core component of emotional intelligence, or EIQ. While our natural condition is to exhibit our core behavior, adapting to someone else's style demands effort and takes a lot of energy.
It's work.
It is work, but it's absolutely essential because, as Erikson reminds us, you will always be in the minority with people who are different from you.
That point again. You're always outnumbered.
Exactly. You already adapt constantly, often unconsciously. This system just offers a more reliable way to do it deliberately and effectively. It's about being truly flexible.
Erikson shares the powerful example of Adam, doesn't he? The yellow entrepreneur.
Yes. A very yellow entrepreneur who initially resisted the very idea of categorizing people and adaptation. He saw it as manipulative, even dangerous not to go on pure feeling.
Yeah, I can see a yellow feeling that way.
Right. But eventually Adam came to understand its profound role and benefits, even teaching Erikson to be careful how he used the knowledge. It highlights that even those initially resistant, especially yellows who value spontaneity, can see the deep value in understanding these dynamics.
Okay, so how do we put this into practice? What are the practical strategies? How do we adapt to red behavior?
For reds, Erikson's advice is incredibly direct. Hurry up, speed up, speak, and act more quickly.
Match their pace.
Exactly. Cut the small talk immediately. Determine the most essential point of your message and start there. Stick rigidly to the topic and be businesslike, avoiding being too friendly or personal.
Get straight to the point.
And deliver your opinion without blinking. Be prepared to argue your point firmly, but never sell yourself short or back down if you believe in your position. Stand your ground.
Okay. Be direct, be quick, be strong. What about adapting to yellow behavior?
With yellows, you need to strip away as much of the minutia as you possibly can and start with big questions that tap into their expansive thinking.
Big picture first, details later, maybe?
Maybe never. Tap into their feelings by asking, how does this feel? Embrace anything new and exciting in your presentation. Be approachable. Share personal details. I love that.
Build rapport.
Yes. And for commitments, be incredibly concrete. Yes, I will be there at 4 just as I promised, and even coordinate appointments meticulously, like invite them 30 minutes early to ensure they actually arrive on time.
The time optimism buffer. Good tip.
Mm-hmm.
How do we adapt to green behavior?
Your approach needs to be incredibly empathetic. You should handle the planning yourself, as they prefer stability. Explain every step of the plan clearly.
No surprises.
None. Ensure that your green partner is on board by getting their buy-in, even if subtle. Avoid conflict by not pushing or confronting them directly, as they despise friction and will lock themselves in.
Gentle approach.
Very gentle. Accept their inertia and give them ample time to adjust. Don't force change, but rather let them feel their way to it, allowing them to gain comfort.
Patience is key. And finally, adapting to blue behavior.
Meticulous preparation is paramount. Make sure you can show that you've done your homework and are well prepared. Stick strictly to the job, avoiding personal small talk entirely.
Just the facts.
Just the facts. There's no vision necessary. Let's all stay in the real world. Focus intensely on realistic goals and facts, not inspirational speeches. Emphasize quality and careful control in your communication and work, using their own language to build trust.
Speak their language. Quality, control, facts. Got it.
Got it.
Now, let's talk about the tricky art of speaking your mind specifically, delivering feedback. That's hard for everyone.
Oh, it's universally difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
And often avoided because of that. Erikson recounts a personal experience with Mike, a green employee who was exceptionally good at his job.
Okay, high performer.
Yes. Erikson, as his boss, praised him publicly with tickets and cash, only for Mike to be furious.
Furious for being praised.
Furious because he was just doing his job and didn't want the attention. This was a clear example of giving feedback in the wrong way for Green, highlighting that even positive feedback needs to be tailored.
Wow, that's a crucial lesson. So how do you tailor feedback to each color? Let's start with feedback to a red. Sounds dangerous.
Erikson warns, if you dare, because the temperature in the room will rise.
Brace yourself.
Definitely. Don't gift wrap things. Be direct. Give very concrete examples, like how calling them at 9 p.m. on a Friday ruins their weekend and impacts Monday's sales, tying it directly to results.
Thinking about the impact.
Yes. Don't play along with their ranting. Stay calm. Be prepared for them to turn the tables or accuse you, as they need to win somehow, even by crossing out a minor item on a list just to feel they conceded something.
Let them have a small win. Okay. What about giving feedback to a yellow? You said they don't listen well.
It's particularly challenging because they often simply won't listen to criticism. Erikson advises you must make an agenda follow it, and use very concrete examples and timed observation.
Like timing how much they talk.
Exactly, like you spoke more than 50% of the time I timed you. Be acutely aware that his ears might not be connected to his brain. They might miss the point or twist words.
Oh dear.
Yeah, like Jane did when the problem wasn't his old stories, but simply talking too much. You absolutely must explain that you don't dislike him, only his behavior.
Separate the person from the behavior. Important.
Crucial for yellows. Flatter them first. You are still my friend, probably my best friend, and I thought he was really funny. Prepare for a strong defense mechanism, especially the martyr complex.
The martyr complex. Oh boy.
Yeah. And crucially, ask them to repeat what was agreed, as yellows simply repress everything that is difficult or unpleasant. You need confirmation.
Got it. Verify understanding. Now, feedback to a green needs to be gentle, right?
Use a gentle approach. Be concrete, as they do listen, but inherently dislike what they hear. Always discuss privately, never in public.
Privacy is key.
Absolutely. Emphasize cooperation and how the feedback will help the team. Avoid confronting them directly, as they despise friction and will lock themselves in and become passive-aggressive if pushed.
Wow.
Gently guide them toward the desired behavior.
Guide, don't push. Okay. And finally, feedback to a blue. Erikson gives a warning.
Yes. Just a word of warning. Make sure you know what you're talking about. They likely know the details better than you. Stick strictly to facts and verifiable data.
Do your homework first.
Thoroughly. Don't try the famous sandwich method, praise blame. They see right through it because they have no ego that must be inflated by superficial compliments.
They want the real deal.
Exactly. Use their language, quality, evaluate, analyze. Ask if they have suggestions for improvement themselves, and crucially, ask them to repeat what was agreed and follow up meticulously.
Ask for their input. Smart.
It is. It's incredibly difficult to criticize a perfectionist because in their mind, he already knows the best method.
Yeah.
You need to approach it very carefully and factually. Hashtag psychs, outro.
So wow, we've journeyed through the intricate landscape of human behavior, using the DISC model as our essential map.
It's quite a journey, isn't it?
It really is. From the competitive drive of a red, to the infectious optimism of a yellow, the serene loyalty of a green, and the meticulous precision of a blue.
We've truly seen how each color contributes to the rich, sometimes baffling tapestry of human interaction.
The core lesson, as we've explored, isn't really to label anyone as an idiot, is it? But rather to recognize and hopefully appreciate the inherent differences that make us all unique.
Right. It's about understanding, not judging.
Exactly. As David Bonstetter reminds us, it's about valuing individuals for their unique strengths and weaknesses. Understanding these patterns allows you, the listener, to adapt your communication, build stronger relationships, and navigate challenges with greater empathy and effectiveness. It transforms confusion into clarity.
Ultimately, this deep dive provides a powerful tool for self-awareness and, perhaps even more importantly, for understanding others. It helps explain why some interactions flow effortlessly, while others truly feel like pulling teeth. It's about recognizing that everyone brings their own unique toolbox to the table, and the real skill lies in knowing which tool to use and when.
Well said. And as for that final provocative thought for you to mull over...
Oh, what have you got?
The book asks, when we can choose, whom do we choose? And crucially, it prompts us to consider, how do we choose the partner we want to spend the rest of our lives with? Your mirror image or your opposite?
Ooh, that's a big one. Your twin or your complement. How do these behavioral dynamics play out in your closest relationships? Something to think about.
Definitely something to think about.
We encourage you to observe the people around you, your family, friends, colleagues, and even yourself. Start identifying these colors, notice how they influence interactions, and reflect on how you might adapt your approach to create more understanding and less frustration.
Yeah, start spotting the colors.
The journey to effective communication is a continuous one, and the insights from this deep dive are truly just the beginning.